There are many deep philosophical questions one could ask, such as, what is the nature of reality?
Money doesn't grow on trees, so why do banks have branches?
What is consciousness?
If a Smurf holds his breath, what color does he turn?
Is human nature inherently good or evil?
If a ghost can walk through a wall, wouldn't it fall through the floor?
How about this? If I had a time machine, where would I go? What would you say if I told you that a group of scientists in the 1950s was faced with answering this seemingly fantastical question?
Today, on the Parsonage Files, we dive into the wonderfully weird tale of the Chronovisor. Is there really a time machine in the Pope's basement?
Welcome to the Parsonage Files.
Welcome to the Parsonage Files. My name is Rick Burke, and I've been a United Methodist pastor now for well over 20 years. And in that time, I've collected a number of stories to use on Sunday mornings, and I have some that just never quite fit into a sermon. And I'm going to share a few of those stories with you here today. Along for the ride is my brother, Rob. Hello, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. Can't wait to get into this.
All right. Well, today we are going to talk about a story that I collected a few years ago to use in a sermon about not necessarily trusting what people tell you. And this one, it comes to us from the Vatican. It is the story.
Vatican Secret Archives by chance?
It is the Vatican Secret Archives. And it's the story of a priest who says that he helped invent a time machine. I was going to use this story as even trustworthy people sometimes tell you things that you need to verify.
Right.
Of course, this never quite made it into a sermon, but I thought it would be fun for us to look into this story, the story of the Chronovisor.
I have loved researching this one, Pastor Rick.
Well, I asked you to do some research on this because honestly, I didn't know much more about it than a priest told folks that he had invented a time machine. Most people didn't believe him.
Right.
And I kind of left it there. But I suspected that there was way more to the story than that. And why don't I turn it over to you, Rob? Give us some of the details.
So when you first told me about this, I'm like, hey, can you run with this story?
Yeah.
I thought, well, there was that time that me and the wife of the pod were in Europe and in Rome, and we took the tour of the Vatican. Did not see it there. So I figured there's nothing left.
All right, Rob, let's just stop there real quick.
Yes.
As a Protestant going to the Vatican, what were your thoughts? If you were a Roman Catholic, there would be, I think, maybe a little more sense of awe. I don't know.
No, there was a sense of awe. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Vatican, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
The amount of historic stuff that's there, almost to the point of gaudiness of the decorations, and you are in awe where you're at. I mean, you even being a Protestant, and of course we made the joke going through the metal detectors that it was a Protestant detector, and every Protestant makes that joke.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Oh, and every security guy, they roll their eyes. I mean, they probably hear that thousands of times.
Oh,
a day.
yeah.
Like, oh no, Protestant detector. Ah!
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, it was one of the most spiritual places, obviously, I've ever been. And being a good Protestant, I guess I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you stand there and you look down, and you're in Saint Peter's Basilica, and you look down, and there's a plaque in the floor.
Yeah.
And our tour guide's like, that's where Peter is buried. And we look down, we look at each other like, Peter is right there. I mean, so it's hard not to be mesmerized by that. There is that sense of awe about the Vatican in general.
So, Rob, what did you learn about the Chronovisor?
All right, so our story begins 1960s Venice. Father Francois Braun, a priest, Benedictine monk, who's there on a research trip.
And he's also a theologian, right?
Theologian, correct. And so he was on his way back to his hotel, climbs aboard one of those water taxis they have.
Okay.
Finds himself seated next to another priest, Father Pellegrino Ernetti. Ernetti is also a Benedictine monk, a musicologist, studied Gregorian chants.
That is a very specific line of study.
And had an interest in exorcism.
So he was a well-rounded type of guy?
Well-rounded priest. So Ernetti and Braun strike up a conversation, as you do, riding on their water taxi. And the conversation turns to various scriptures, their interpretations of the scriptures, and
Yeah.
whatnot, as you do. And Braun makes some offhanded comment about his interpretation of some piece of scripture. And Ernetti looks at him and says, "That's not true. That's not how that happened." Braun's like, "Well, that's an interesting interpretation. I've never heard anyone make that interpretation before."
Thanks for your 2 cents.
Right. And Ernetti's like, "It's not an interpretation. I saw it." So Braun's like, "Oh, right? Like, you what?"
What?
And Father Ernetti's like, "I saw it. I was involved in a project about 10 years ago with the Vatican that we could look at the past." And Braun's like, "Okay, not sure really what to think of."
Right, is he joking?
His new friend? Is this guy crazy?
right.
What is it? And so Braun's like, "Okay, do you have any proof of that?" And he's like, "I do. Why don't you stop by the house tomorrow?" And so Braun's like, "I will." So Braun heads back to his hotel. Who knows what he was thinking? Like, okay, I guess I'll go see what this guy's proof is tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so that's how our story begins.
Just happened to meet this other guy who tells him, Braun, I'm saying, happens to meet this other guy who
Ernetti,
tells him, that Ernetti tells him this really fantastical story about basically a time machine.
Correct. And so that's where our story begins. Ernetti claims that he has seen the crucifixion of Christ, witnessed the Last Supper, listened to various speakers in Rome, and that he had proof of all this.
He had proof of it.
So that is where our story begins. A more cautious man probably wouldn't just go, "You know what? A guy I just met 5 minutes ago, I'm going to go to his house tomorrow and have him show me proof of the paranormal."
He's going to show me pictures of the crucifixion and Jesus. Okay.
I mean, there's probably a sense of the guy does live in a monastery, so I mean, there's only so much weirdness is going to happen there. But still,
that isn't something that I'm sure Father Braun heard all the time.
correct.
On his way home from work.
Way home from work. So the next day, Father Braun goes over to the monastery and goes on into Ernetti's house.
Yeah.
And they have a conversation, start talking, making small talk. Apparently, and this is all from Braun's book. So most of this information
so this is in a book.
Comes from Francois Braun's book.
Okay.
We can put a link up if you're watching it to get it off of Amazon. Now, warning, it is not in English and there is no English version of it. So it's all in Italian and you're going to need to run it through Google Translate.
Which is always a fun way.
Always a reliable way to do it.
Always a fun and reliable way of getting through any sort of work.
But the book that tells all of this can be yours for $23.95. So
in Italian. Now, is that in U.S. dollars or Italian
lira?
Lira?
Sure. No, it's in U.S. dollars.
Okay.
Jeff Bezos does that for us. All hail the Bezos.
So Father Braun goes over to Father Ernetti's place.
Yep.
And what does he see?
So the house is described pretty much as you would expect, high back chairs, rugs, your standard 1950s monastery. And so the two fathers start talking. Pastor Rick, when you refer to two priests, are they fathers?
I'm going to go with fathers.
Okay, we're going to call them that. If it's not right, leave us as they say, leave us in the comments below. I have no idea what you call two priests.
Plural
priests.
Plural
priestess
of
fathers. This is the kind of riveting information you get here on the Parsonage Files.
Let's see. The plural of a priests is priests. The plural of father.
You didn't learn this in seminary?
Is fathers.
So the fathers are having a conversation, and at some point the conversation turns to what they had discussed the day before, the proof of the Chronovisor. This is what Father Braun says happened.
Okay.
Father Ernetti opens a drawer and he pulls out a series of photographs, and one shows a picture of what looks like the crucifixion of Christ.
Now, I have these pictures, and they're pretty easy to find out there on the internet, of the pictures he was supposedly shown by Father Ernetti. Father Braun was. So the pictures that Father Braun says he was shown, and I believe Father Ernetti authenticated these photos, are pretty well available on the internet. So let me throw these up here while you talk about them.
Okay, perfect.
All
So there's a series of pictures. One of them is a picture of Christ on the cross.
Yes.
The second one is a picture of Jesus with his disciples.
Okay.
And the third one looks like the disciples walking. It looks
Yes.
like they're heading towards the tomb, I believe, is what Father Ernetti said they were doing, is when they realized that Christ had been resurrected. And so they went to those scenes, which you would. I mean, if you're looking at the past. And so then Father Ernetti weaved this tale of where these pictures came from and how this project happened.
Yeah.
So here is the story. Strap in, buckle in, Pastor Rick.
Can I just give you my
They're
just-
creepy pictures, by the way.
well, okay, so these are just my what do they call it on the internet when somebody sees something and then reacts to it?
Oh, reaction video.
A reaction video, right?
Yeah.
So this is my reaction video to these photos here. The picture of Jesus on the cross, that is creepy.
It is.
And it doesn't, it resembles pictures of the traditional pictures of Christ in some ways, and in some ways it doesn't. But and this is going to sound totally odd, but in this, Jesus has the weirdest eyebrows.
Well, we'll get to that in
Okay.
the analysis section of that.
Oh, okay.
Pastor Rick.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's just set the scene.
Sorry, I didn't mean to comment on Jesus's
No.
eyebrows in this. It's just kind of,
Man needs a pluck. A man needs a pluck. I mean,
well, yeah.
by the time you get to your 30s, you get a unibrow. So let me just reset the scene here. Yes, everybody, I just said Jesus had a unibrow. So let's just kind of reset the scene.
Yeah, I think we need to.
All right. So now Braun has been shown these pictures, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so he's like, dude, how did you get these pictures? And this
Yeah.
is the story Father Ernetti tells.
Okay.
Okay. So it goes back about 10 years earlier. Father Ernetti, who's a Gregorian chant expert, it's a thing.
Yeah.
He was doing research at a Vatican-run research facility in Milan.
Okay.
And part of his research was taking chants from old recordings, cleaning them up, and putting them onto new tape.
Not that different from what we currently do today when we take things and make them digital and put them online.
So he's working on it, just going through the process.
Okay.
And in walks Father Agostino Gemelli.
Okay.
Father Gemelli is the head of Vatican research. So basically boss guy. Comes down, got his cup of coffee, and he's just shooting the breeze, right? They're talking. Yeah. And Ernetti is working on his Gregorian chants. He gets the recordings, the old recordings, and he starts to play them back. As he's doing, he's working and talking. And as he's doing this, Father Gemelli, the head of Vatican research, hears what he swears is his father's voice.
In the recording?
In the recording. He hears his father talking and arguing with somebody about shoe wax. And so they take a step back.
Shoe wax?
Take a step back. Father Gemelli, the head of Vatican research, who hears his father's voice.
Yeah.
He's from Milan, and his father was a cobbler who worked just down the street from where this research facility was.
Making shoes.
And so as the story goes, it's basically, if you would think of it was modern day EVPs for the paranormal research of ghosts.
Right. Yeah.
Which would be what, electronic voice phenomenon?
Yeah. That you see all the ghost hunting shows where they record, a bunch of silence, and they play it back and they can hear supposedly those voices of ghosts.
So this would just be an early version of that.
Okay.
So we have so just to be sure, because we got lots of priests with lots of very similar names.
Yeah.
So we have Father Gemelli, who's the head of Vatican research. Here's his father's voice on this recording of monks chanting that Father Ernetti is working on.
Okay.
Father Gemelli is fascinated by this. He swears it's his dad. I mean, swears this is his father. It's not just sounds like his father, is his father discussing something from the past. His father is long deceased.
Okay.
And so Father Gemelli and Father Ernetti have a conversation. How is this possible? And they both start thinking, maybe there's some energy that we radiate into the cosmos. This is out there in the ether, and that we're picking it up with this electronic equipment. Again, exactly like what you hear with electronic voice phenomena in ghost hunting shows today.
Yeah, what do they call that? The stone tape theory?
Stone tape theory, right.
Yeah.
You produce this energy that just stays out there, and technology will pick it up. So this is an early version of that. So this is what has happened. So Father Gemelli, who's the head of research, has some pull, and he goes and talks to the Pope, as you do. And so Father Gemelli really wants to do more research on this. One, because he wants to hear its father's voice, but two, because he's intrigued. He's a skeptic. Now he's become a true believer. And he's like, hey, Pope, I want to do research on this. Now, there's a big problem on this, Pastor Rick.
Yeah.
This is what's known, I believe, as necromancy.
Yes, talking to the dead.
Which is a big no-no in the Catholic Church.
It is, although there are a couple of times in the Bible, I'm thinking of the famous Witch of Endor scene in the Old Testament. But yeah, generally speaking, necromancy is never seen as a good thing in the Bible.
So the story goes that Gemelli talks to the Pope. They have a long discussion. And the Pope's advice is he's okay to go ahead and do research on this because they're not really talking to the dead. They're picking up residual energy from people that were once alive.
They're seeing the history of living people. They're not talking to deceased people.
Correct.
So technically, it's not necromancy.
And so this is where the research project begins. And because it's the Vatican, they got some money. So Father Gemelli goes back to the research lab, begins his project. Now, here's the part that's a little confusing, but so Ernetti, the first priest who has this whole story, he is not a scientist, but yet he's in a project that has to do with physics. And so he gets there because the story kind of revolves around the fact that because Ernetti was there when made the first recording, as kind of a professional courtesy, he was allowed to be involved on this all-star superstar team. Which is a lot like stories you hear about other people that clearly don't have the knowledge, skill sets to do these projects. How do you end up in these places?
Yeah. So many of these paranormal stories have these people with fairly mundane backgrounds who are now working with these, top thinkers. And I'm not saying that this type of stuff doesn't happen in real life, but
it's not an unusual story.
It's not an unusual kind of thing. I mean, you can think back to the whole Bob Lazar thing in Area 51, where, he's just a guy, doesn't even have a college degree per se, and he's working on with UFOs. You can just list out the stories.
That's how Father Ernetti says he became involved with this project.
Okay.
Because it's the Vatican, and when you're the Vatican, you get A-level help. They called in the top minds around the world. Now, the only two that Ernetti ever mentioned by name were Enrico Fermi. Might sound familiar. Built the first nuclear reactor.
Fermi's paradox.
Right. Yeah. So definitely a smart person.
Yeah.
And so he was on the team. And Wernher von Braun,
who comes up in everything.
Now, why you would want a rocket scientist to be working on electromagnetism or whatever you would call this? I'm not sure exactly what the proper scientific term would be, but it would seem odd. But definitely in the 1960s, 50s, and 60s, everyone knew who Wernher von Braun was.
Yeah.
So those two, along with 9 other people, were called in to create a machine to investigate.
If you wanted to impress people with super smart people, he would be one of
that. Would be a name you would drop,
right? Like today, you would use. He died, Stephen Hawking, right?
Correct. Yeah. The right people in the right place, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the story. So Ernetti was doing research, got sucked into this project to look into, can we pick up residual energy from the past and somehow turn that into sound or light waves.
So they built a machine. Now
they did. So think of this machine as it's a time machine, but it's not a time machine that takes you. You can just watch it. You can't interact. You can just watch. So it's playing back on a television.
So it's like watching history, not being in history.
Correct. And you could tune it. And so the story goes, it's made of cathode ray tubes, special antenna made out of special metal.
So not made out of a coat hanger.
Not made out of a coat hanger, but it's sort of like the Roswell UFOs. It's always special metal.
Special metal.
What is the special metal? No one really has exact details
because it's special.
It's special metal. Special metal. And then other exotic pieces and parts that would help reconstruct the residual electromagnetic radiation and sound waves of the past. Yeah.
So basically, it's a giant TV.
It is.
with the cool antenna, with
a
a
cool
special
antenna.
antenna.
With an antenna and a direction finder on the device that you could tune to watch whatever area you want.
Like you could like set it to like you wanted to see 3280, you could set it to 3280
Yeah.
and it would go.
Yeah.
And you could set the like place.
You could. And so they developed this at a Vatican research facility, and it worked. And so while the experiments were going, they ended up getting it to work, and that's where the photographs came from. That Ernetti, not a scientist or not a physicist, a researcher, but not a scientist,
Yeah.
who probably all rights, if this was a real project, shouldn't be there because he's not qualified, takes pictures that he's not supposed to be taking. And so that's how he gets these 3 pictures, so he takes those and hides them because you're not supposed to be doing that.
Okay, so
it gets better, Pastor Rick.
Okay, I'll let you finish before I ask my questions.
Okay, so he takes.
Do I got some questions?
So he takes some pictures, and so they're doing these projects.
Okay.
Well, as they become more and more successful, where it gets back to the Pope that, hey, they've been successful at being able to tune into the past. They go meet with the Pope.
Yeah.
And after long discussions, the decision is to destroy the machine.
Why?
Because if it fell into the wrong hands, it could become a very dangerous weapon. You would be able to tune to anything that's happened in the past and see it. You'd be able to use it for all kinds of nefarious purposes. The more negative view of it would be that the Catholic Church realized that there are some parts of the past that were not necessarily the way they were portraying them, and they did not want that to be released to the public. So that the church was trying to keep power and was destroying it. Or even if that was not the case, if it fell into the wrong hands, this was much too powerful for man to know, we must destroy this device.
All right. So did they test it? I mean, how did they know that if what this machine was showing them was actually history and not something else?
Yeah, they did. They because they had archival footage of Mussolini's speeches, they went back and watched the speeches in real life to see if they matched up.
So they watched Mussolini's speech on the Chronovisor and then went back and then they
looked at historical film footage and
they matched up. So they were like, okay, so this is
real. Yeah.
Okay, Rob, please tell me that Father Ernetti has something other than just some blurry pictures and a good story to prove that the Chronovisor is, well, real.
Yeah. How about lost Roman text?
Oh, do tell.
Yes. So he went back and watched, there's a cat apparently named Quintus Ennius.
That does sound like a Monty Python name.
It does.
But it is real. He's a real guy, Quintus Ennius.
And he had written a Roman tragedy.
I think he writes Thistius.
Okay. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, Thistius.
That's it. And up until now, there's only been fragments of that for scholars to research. Well, have no fear. Father Ernetti is here. He went back, watched a telling of it in ancient Rome, and because Father Ernetti knows Latin, copied it down and came up with 300 or 400 more verses that scholars had never seen before. And he had that right there. I mean, what more proof do you need, dude?
That's great.
You sound skeptical, my friend.
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, he wrote it in his own hand, by the way.
Well, if he heard the whole play, why didn't he write the whole play down? Because he can only write so fast.
It's only so fast you can write. I think I just misspoke. I believe I misspoke. He did write everything he heard down, and this
because I say, couldn't you just hit rewind on the Chronovisor?
This goes into what we're going to get to here in a moment. Why this is probably not true, but he wrote down several hundred lines and said, "This is the play. I've got it. I'm good."
Yeah.
So he had that. He showed that to Father Bruno. He had that in the drawer with the sketchy with the black and white photos.
Okay. Did he have any other proof? Like, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. What kind of other proof would you have?
Only the proof that you get with your own 2 ears.
All right. What did he hear?
He went back in time and listened to Cicero talk and was amazed at the oratory that the man had. That he was absolutely everything that everyone said he was.
So Cicero, who was a Roman statesman, lawyer, scholar, philosopher,
one of the greatest speakers of all time.
Yeah. Let's see. When did he live? 106 BC to 43 BC. So he would have been right at the end of the Roman Republic.
Right. So what more do you need? He heard it with his own ears.
Perfect. I mean, I totally believe Father Ernetti. So he's got these blurry photos. He's got a half-written play that he has said he copied, and he said that he heard Cicero.
Right. And no machine, no chronovisor to prove because it was destroyed by the Vatican.
So why
It
did
was
the Vatican
dangerous.
again think it needed destroyed?
Well, it depends on if you think good Vatican or bad Vatican. Good Vatican said it was too much power for man to have, that if it fell into the wrong hands, it could be used for all sorts of shenanigans and evil.
Okay.
Bad Vatican theory says because it proved things that the Vatican held as truth that were not about Jesus.
So you could use this to like just pick a day. Like I want to see 43 AD and just pick the year 43 AD and
tune into it
in Groveport, Ohio, and it would just take you right there.
Yeah, because the residual energy is still there.
Could you also track people with it? Like, let's say I wanted to see Robert Burke. Would it show you Robert Burke?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So explain to me how that works.
I have no idea.
Did Father Ernetti know how it worked?
I don't believe so.
He just knew that they built this machine and you could use it to set the day and time, sort of like on Back to the Future, and it would just figure it out.
Yes. We are very much Back to the Future-ish. You can just watch things
with
on a TV, which, by the way, would have been relatively new technology in itself.
So Father Ernetti basically has set up the plot to, or at least part of the plot to Back to the Future.
What do you mean?
30 years before the movie.
Maybe. Also a plot to, I believe, a Twilight Zone episode. But, whatever.
With the TV. So, all right. So let's get back here to the Chronovisor.
Yes.
So the Pope says this is too dangerous for any one group to have.
Yes.
Because it could be used. I guess it would take away privacy. If you could just snoop on people, national secrets could be stolen. Corporate espionage. You could blackmail people with it. You could do all kinds of stuff. So the Chronovisor is taken apart and is then stored in the Vatican archives.
Well, see, this is where you get multiple stories.
Okay.
Ernetti originally says it was completely destroyed because it was just too powerful. But as the years went on, he's like, well, maybe it's there. Maybe parts were salvaged. And then as the story kind of evolved over the years, it's like, yeah, well, the Vatican actually still has it and is still using it.
Using it for what?
Nefarious Vatican things.
Okay.
It's always just about that clear, right?
All right. So if this is true, and the Vatican would have been using it since the 1950s.
Right.
Why did the Pope John Paul II, then not know he was going to be shot and take steps to avoid that? Oh, wait, that's the future. It can only see the past. Never mind.
I was just letting you go down that path.
Let's go back to the story.
Yeah.
Father Ernetti now says, there was this machine that let us look at the past. It worked. I've got proof. I've got some photos. I've got this cool play that I have translated from the original.
Yep.
And I've seen folks like Cicero. Where does he go from here? Does he write a book? Because that's what I would do.
Father Bruno does write a book.
Father Bruno, but Father Ernetti doesn't write a book.
He does not. He actually kind of becomes a little more of a recluse. There's some articles of some Italian papers that bring this up in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
But my understanding is Father Ernetti really did not publicize it.
It was the other priest,
The other priest who heard it, Father Bruno, who kind of took the story and created some books and made kind of a name for himself.
And
not saying it's not true.
So he popularized it, said, hey, I have a friend who told me this, and Father Ernetti just sort of backed off. How about the folks named, like Wernher von Braun? Did he ever say, yes, you know what? That's a great story. It's true. I was part.
Never mentioned it.
Because you would think that would be a huge resume builder.
You would. Never mentioned it.
Enrico Fermi. Did he ever?
Never mentioned it. But believers would say that there's a lot of projects that the two of those, that Fermi and von Braun, would be involved in, that they've worked on in years, that were secret, that they would never mention anyway, that they were the kind of guys that worked on things that you just didn't talk about.
Fair.
But it also works out great for a myth-building story that these are guys that don't talk about things they do, so you can kind of write whatever you want onto the blank canvas of this story.
So what did the Catholic Church say about this? Because obviously you've got
Okay, so
these two priests out here walking around telling everybody.
So here's the weird thing, right? So
Yeah.
so it's an outlandish story. Everyone's thinking this has got to be crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Vatican had a decree in 1988 that anyone using an instrument such as the Chronovisor would be immediately excommunicated. Why would they do that? Why would they?
Why would you create a role for something that doesn't exist?
That's completely ludicrous, but yet you feel compelled in 1988 to issue a decree saying, don't do it, you're going to be excommunicated? Odd.
That is odd.
You would think that Vatican wouldn't care. They're just like, oh, okay, two crazy guys writing a book, trying to make some money, whatever.
Yeah.
But they seem to have cared.
Did it seem to hurt their careers, Father Ernetti and Father Bruno?
Not Bruno, because Bruno becomes well known for this story.
Okay.
So he's writing the books and going on
the tours.
Going on tour. And he swore until his death relatively recently that this was 100% true. Father Ernetti, who supposedly participated in these events, he also claimed that it was true until his death. Kind of.
What you mean by kind of?
Kind of. Well, after Father Ernetti passed away, family members, always the mysterious family members came out and said, yeah, Father Ernetti on his deathbed said, yeah, the pictures in the play were made up, but this really did happen.
Interesting. What do skeptics say about the pictures? Like, let's go back to these pictures. I'll put them back up here.
The pictures are 100% fake. One is a sculpture. Picture of a sculpture.
That's the picture of Jesus.
Picture of Jesus.
Because I'm looking at a
that's
picture.
That's eyebrow Jesus.
Yeah, because I'm looking at a picture, and it's supposedly this is a picture, if I'm reading this right, of this statue. It doesn't look exactly like that statue.
No, it doesn't.
But I got to be honest, it doesn't. The picture of Jesus doesn't look like a real person,
and it's a unique. The statue is a unique picture of Jesus itself.
He's looking up to heaven.
Right. And it's a unique look and to it.
And even if you look at the hair that's coming down off of on Jesus's forehead, it matches 100% from the sculpture to the picture that Ernetti is saying is real.
But Ernetti had a answer for that.
Oh, did he?
He did.
Okay.
Did you hear this? that
no.
He's like, well, yeah, it does match because the sculpture was the sculptor who created that was inspired by God and had the same vision.
But that includes like there's 3 strands of hair on the sculpture that is on the forehead, and they match exactly the 3 strands.
Because the sculpture had a vision from God that was exactly, he's just copying what he saw.
Okay. All right, even if we hold that to be true.
Yes.
This other,
and I don't know why you wouldn't.
Well, I have no idea. I mean, this isn't like the story totally sounds made up. This other picture of Jesus and his disciples, if I'm looking at that, it is a exact copy for a painting.
It is an exact copy. Yep.
Yeah. It's a painting. I'll put those up here.
Just another divine coincidence, I suppose.
I'm going to guess it's a divine coincidence that these two look exactly alike. So it looks like that pretty much all these photos that Father Ernetti was claiming came from the Chronovisor have been shown, I think, to a pretty high degree of being false.
Yeah, you can match them. There's a picture of the disciples running to the tomb, which is a famous painting.
Yeah.
There's the picture of Jesus walking with his disciples. That's a famous painting.
Yeah.
The sculpture of Jesus looking up. So yeah, all of them can be traced to real art.
So did Father Ernetti have an explanation for why all? I mean, I can see the sculpture, but
to be fair to Father Ernetti, and not that those 3 are, but there's a number of other pictures that are attributed to him that come much later that he never said that were never.
Okay, it was other people.
As the story has progressed, and other people have told it. They've added more and more pictures. The Italian magazines that published the story back in the 70s added their own pictures and took some liberty and license with the story. So it's kind of gotten muddled. But what Father Ernetti says is their pictures that he showed Father Bruno back in the 1960s were legitimate.
Did Father Bruno say that these photos that are being printed in all these magazines and newspapers, did he ever say if those were the pictures he saw or not?
He did, and he's the one who commented on some of them like, that's not true.
Okay. So Father Bruno, at the very least, realized that this was an issue and got out in front of it.
Yes.
I guess from a cynical point of view, from a more credulous point of view, it would be he was just saying, these aren't the pictures that I saw or that I remember seeing.
Correct.
Huh. Well, that is interesting. So what Father Ernetti passes away. How about Father Bruno?
Well, the Bruno passed away relatively recently. I mean, like within the last decade.
Okay.
And he went to his grave saying it was 100% true.
So he at least publicly said he always believed Father Ernetti was telling him the truth.
Yes.
Could it be Father Ernetti was just pulling the wool over his friend's eyes?
It could be. I mean, Father Bruno, who wrote the book, was into some of the esoteric parts of science.
Okay.
So he might have been primed for a good tale.
And
he just becomes a believer. Sort of like, and this is going to get people mad.
Yeah.
Sort of like Stanton Friedman in the UFO world. He's not lying. He is telling what he believes to be the truth, but he's just really gullible.
With the whole Majestic 12.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Roswell.
So Stanton Friedman is the guy who popularized the Roswell story. And then the Majestic 12, where he went into the archives and found a list of people that are on a secret committee that are running the UFO cover-up.
Yeah, and the alien bodies and all of this.
So so it's along the same lines. I don't think they're not lying because they really believe it to be true, but they've convinced themselves of a truth that's not real.
And people tell them things that they just believe. And we all know people like that who are just very trusting and will believe what others say.
And people want to believe this because, I mean, especially when the story first came out in the 60s, 50s, and 60s, television was pretty much a modern miracle. It could do magical things, basically. It could send pictures across the country, across the world. And so it wasn't that big of a leap to think that it would catch that there was other miracles out there that could be seen with television and technology. And plus people kind of want proof for their faith, which you could probably talk to more than I could, but
more I think about it, this would have I should have used this in a sermon because this is a really good story about somebody who is in a position of trust, telling you something, other people believing it. Just because somebody you trust tells you something doesn't mean that you should just automatically. I mean, there is a lot more here than I guess what I was thinking originally as this is just a crazy story. I mean, it's still a crazy story about a time machine, if you will. But
people want visual proof of Jesus.
Right. So, all right, Rob, the bottom line of this.
Yeah.
Did the Chronovisor or does the Chronovisor exist? Did it? Does it now? What do you think?
Was there a device that could be tuned in to look at past historical events? No. Was there a project commissioned to research this at some point by Vatican scholars? I can get behind that. That seems like something that they would do.
They might throw a little bit of money at.
Throw a little money at. They got right. Might have Ernetti heard about this project and sort of grafted himself into it and then added all the other stuff to it. That would be my take of it.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that
at the
happening.
core, there could have been a project.
Because, I mean, in the 1950s, 1960s, we know for a fact that governments were into researching all kinds of weird esoteric stuff, everything from psychic research to the use of psychedelics to enhance espionage and just all kinds of weird things.
So that seems like that would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, if the CIA was willing to spend money to put a listening device into a cat, which they did,
If we could just get that worked into a
Oh my
sermon.
gosh.
Project Acoustic Kitty.
Acoustic Kitty.
Look up Acoustic Kitty. You will not be sad.
Favorite story of the Cold War. So if we know that people really did do that during that time period, I could see where the Vatican might spend a little bit of money to see if we could go back and see history. Because imagine if you could actually see Jesus preaching the Beatitudes.
Mhm.
That would be pretty cool. It would really revolutionize the world.
Change the world forever.
It would change the world forever. Do I think it's true? No, I don't think anything ever came of it. Even if there was anything.
Why was there a papal decree in 1988 forbidding it if it was nothing there? I mean, it just seems like that's work that does not need to be done.
That would require some more research on what was going on at the time. Was there any sort of like scientific work, related to time travel or other dimensions? I mean, it's hard to tell because the Vatican is one of the leading sponsors of astronomy and actual hard science. So it's hard to tell if that came from a real legitimate source, because the only time you hear about it is in relation to the Chronovisor, and the people who are telling you about that are generally going to want to relate that story to having something to do with the Chronovisor. So I really don't know, but it's interesting. All right, if there was the Chronovisor, Rob, what would you want to see first?
Noah's Ark.
Noah's Ark. Why?
I want to see how he got all those animals onto that boat.
That's true.
I mean, that's one of the earliest questions you develop as a kid in Sunday school. How does that work?
How does that work? I think if I had the Chronovisor, the first thing I would look up would be Jesus, but it wouldn't be the crucifixion. I would probably look up the Christmas story, see what was going on. Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool. I think.
However, you would be glad that it's not a smell-o-vision, because stable, probably not the best smelling place.
Yeah, that's probably what I would do. But I think that's an interesting thing to think about. I think that's something you shouldn't think about. If I could see one slice of history, what would it be and why? Yeah,
but does that make faith? Does that take away from your faith, I guess, Pastor Rick?
Well, I mean, it could, certainly. But then you also have to ask yourself, did Paul seeing the resurrected Christ on the road to Damascus, did that hurt his faith? No, and increased his faith. So I don't know that it would necessarily hurt your faith. I think it would increase it some.
I mean, it really would depend on what you see.
Do you need it? No. And as the Bible tells us, right? For those who haven't seen Christ are even more highly exalted than those who have, right? So I think, is it going to ruin your faith? No. Is it going to help it? I don't know. I mean, it might. It is an interesting thought, though.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
If you saw Jesus, would that change? I think if you saw Jesus, it might change how you view yourself, right?
Yep.
Because so often we view Jesus the way we want to view Jesus, but if you actually see Jesus in the flesh right there, you're going to be forced to maybe change your view of Christianity or how you follow Christ a little bit.
And this would be the reason the Vatican said it was too dangerous for normal people to look at.
I think they thought it was too dangerous because people would,
Know what happened to the Knights Templar?
No, I think it would be too dangerous because people would be going back and, spying on their parents and grandparents. And then,
that's just a creep factor that I wasn't expecting, Pastor Rick.
Well, you could.
I'm not saying you couldn't.
Well, if you like watching this stuff with the Chronovisor, that's why the Pope said no, because people could be all creepy.
And he's met people, and people
and he's met people,
and people are creepy.
People would be creepy. I mean, all right. So let's be honest. If there really was the Chronovisor, I think it would have to be banned, because let's face it, people are creepy and they would do creepy stuff with it. People do creepy stuff with anything we create.
They do. I've been on the internet.
Be on the internet, right?
Yeah.
Give them 10 minutes and no matter, AI, right?
It goes full creep.
Yep. How long did it take us to take a new invention like AI and start doing creepy things with it?
Yeah.
A week? I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Television.
So if you would have
movies,
gotten this accomplished, creating a chronovisor, I mean,
people would all of a sudden
That would
start
be the-
using it for the wrong, because
that would be the correct decision. Is
right,
to
because
not allow
we
it.
are sinful people living in a fallen world, and I think the Pope would know that.
And this would just be an accelerator onto that fallenness.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it did exist, I could see why you would want to get rid of it. Now, real quick here, has there ever been any further advance in the study of the coronavirus after Father Ernetti and Father Bruno died?
Chronovisor, not the coronavirus, Pastor Rick.
Oh, yeah. The
Do
coronavirus.
not say coronavirus. That
So
gets
the
you banned.
Chronovisor did not create the coronavirus.
Not to my knowledge.
Are we sure 100%?
But that's a sure way to get banned from YouTube.
That's a sure way. Yeah, we don't want to bring that up. So was the coronavirus created by the Chronovisor? Has anybody ever thought about that?
Not that I'm aware of.
I think we can be the first people to bring that up. Let's start that.
So
The Chronovisor,
I'm just trying to figure out how to get that to work into the story.
huh?
I'm trying to figure out how to. So
The coronavirus came about because people were looking at the past, and the virus got zapped by whatever mystical force they were using to see the past, and it got turned into
that mystical force is called physics, my friend.
Is that what that's called?
Physics and math.
Some might call it imagination and other things, but
Physics and math brought the coronavirus to us through the Chronovisor.
to the coronavirus. All right, so two totally different things. Do not get that.
Do
screwed
not
up.
get them confused.
All right.
One will get you banned from social media. The other one won't.
All right. So the takeaway here is the Chronovisor is a great story, but it has nothing to do with the coronavirus,
Correct.
and is probably not true.
Correct. Yeah. No, it's not.
Because
There's too many holes in a story for it to be true. Again, we'll go back to my original summation. Is I think a project happened of some sort
okay,
that was investigating, is there residual energy that can be picked up through modern technology? We do that today with ghost hunter shows. I mean,
Right.
with EVPs, the electronic voice phenomenon, same idea. And so that part of it makes sense. But did they create one and be able to do it? They watch too much television.
from what I have read and seen about the whole idea of like the stone tape theory with ghosts, where the people residual energy gets trapped in the stone and then it comes back years later, and that's what a ghost is, that there's zero scientific basis for that being true.
It just, in layman's sense, it makes sense.
In layman's sense, it makes sense, but in the real world, there's nothing scientifically valid about the idea that us living today is going to create some sort of force that can be picked up, other than obviously light, right? Because, for instance, when you look into the night sky, you're seeing history.
You are. That light.
Because what's the closest star? Alpha Proximus, I think.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is the whatever the closest star. It's like four light years away. Well, if it blew up today, we wouldn't know it for 4 years. So what we're seeing is what happened 4 years ago, not today. So can we see into the past? Yeah. Is there any?
It's a good point. We already are seeing into the past.
Yeah. I think that's why people look at stories like the coronavirus, the Chronovisor, and think, well, this has got to be true because that makes sense. But in here on Earth, there's just that it doesn't work that way. And how would you be able, even if the reflected light and sound from us is stored, how would you be able to take that and then separate that out from everybody else's light and sound that's being stored?
These are good questions, Pastor Rick.
How would you do that? With cathode ray tubes?
That's what the suggestion is.
And some knobs? I mean, it's...
And dials.
And dials. Don't forget the dials.
And dials.
It's the dials.
The dials that make it.
Yeah. It's not the switches. It's the dials.
So that's the story.
Yeah, it's a great story. I love it. All right, Rob. Thanks for taking the lead on this one.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate your work on educating us about the Chronovisor. And honestly, I might be able to use this in a sermon now that I know more. So
Will I get credit?
as much as you ever do. And so if anybody hears this come up in a sermon sometime in the future, just act like you don't know what this story is about and be surprised.
And remember my contribution to the sermon.
Yeah, you go. And if anybody is interested in more information on the Chronovisor, I'll put some interesting links down below in the description. Is an interesting story, and it just reminds us that not everything we hear is what it seems to be. So until next time, thanks for being here. Thanks, Rob.
Hey, thank you for having me, Pastor Rick.
All right. And if you're looking for a church, be sure to join us at Groveport UMC, 10:30 a.m. every Sunday, in person or online. Take care. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.